The concierge humiliated a black couple, unaware that they were the new owners of the hotel. The next day, his world came crashing down when the truth was revealed. What happened next will surprise even the most seasoned readers. But let's start from the very beginning. The massive glass doors of the Grand Regency Hotel slid open smoothly as Amelia and Christopher Jones stepped into the luxurious lobby. Amelia, wearing an emerald green dress, her dark curls cascading over her shoulders, strode forward confidently. Beside her walked Christopher, impeccably dressed in a navy blue suit. They quickly took in the surroundings: golden chandeliers, gleaming marble floors, and expensive artwork adorning the walls. The atmosphere of exclusivity was palpable. Approaching the front desk, they were greeted by the concierge, Daniel White. A man in his 30s with piercing blue eyes, his demeanor immediately betrayed his attitude. His smile barely concealed a hint of arrogance, and his tone shifted as soon as he saw the black couple before him. "Welcome to the Grand Regency," he said with strained politeness. "Do you have a reservation?" Christopher, remaining composed, handed over his credit card. "Yes, we have a room reserved under our name." Daniel glanced at the card, raising an eyebrow slightly, and then began checking their reservation with exaggerated slowness. Sensing something was off, Amelia crossed her arms, watching him drag out the process. Daniel finally said after a long pause. "It seems there's been a mistake. Your reservation isn't in our system." Amelia narrowed her eyes. "That's impossible. We have a confirmation," she said, pulling out her phone. Daniel straightened, exuding a smug air of superiority. "Perhaps the issue is with the bank. Regardless, we won't be able to accommodate you today. I suggest trying other hotels in the area." A small crowd began gathering behind them, the lobby growing noisier as Daniel's behavior drew attention. Amelia frowned, but Christopher placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "We'll wait here while you double-check our reservation," he said calmly. "Or perhaps you'd prefer to call your manager." The mention of the manager visibly unsettled Daniel. His expression twitched before he quickly regained his professional facade. "One moment, I'll be right back," he said, retreating swiftly. Amelia crossed her arms, turning to Christopher. "You realize he never intended to let us stay, right?" "I do," Christopher replied dryly. "And he'll regret it!" Daniel soon returned with the manager, a middle-aged woman with a commanding presence and a sharp gaze. "What seems to be the issue?" she asked, casting a stern look at Daniel. "The issue," Christopher said firmly, "is that your staff claims we have no reservation, though I'm certain we do." The manager nodded, quickly checked the system, and frowned. "Your reservation is confirmed. My apologies for the inconvenience. Please, follow me. Your room is ready." Amelia smiled, but there was a glint of defiance in her eyes. "Thank you. Could you explain why we were initially denied a room?" Daniel froze, but the manager, sensing trouble, pressed her lips into a thin line. "I'll handle this matter internally. Thank you for your patience, Mrs. Jones." Amelia and Christopher headed to the elevator, leaving the lobby behind. The air was charged with tension. "Tomorrow will be a surprise for him," Amelia murmured with a sly smile. "It most certainly will," Christopher agreed. At exactly 9 a.m. the next day, Daniel stood behind the concierge desk, adjusting his uniform. The previous evening had been tense. Manager Patricia Harding had clearly been displeased with his conduct, and the conversation in her office had left a bitter taste. However, Daniel consoled himself with the thought that today's shift would be uneventful. When Patricia entered the lobby accompanied by several staff members, Daniel felt a flicker of unease. It was unusual for her to arrive so early, let alone with a team. She surveyed the room and walked briskly to the desk. "Daniel, have you greeted our guest this morning?" she asked without preamble. "Not yet, Ms. Harding," he replied with a forced smile. "Nothing out of the ordinary so far." "Good," Patricia said curtly. "Then meet me in my office in 10 minutes. We need to discuss yesterday's incident." She left, leaving Daniel with a sinking feeling. He knew trouble was brewing, but couldn't fathom just how deep it ran. An hour later, Amelia and Christopher appeared in the lobby. They looked impeccable. Amelia in a sleek cream-colored suit and Christopher in a charcoal gray blazer. Their composed demeanor immediately drew the attention of everyone present. Patricia emerged from her office, greeting the couple with a wide smile, though her eyes betrayed tension. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. I trust you had a pleasant stay." "Wonderful," Amelia replied with a nod. "Thank you for meeting with us this morning." "Of course," Patricia said. Turning to the staff, she raised her voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the new owners of the Grand Regency hotel chain, Mr. and Mrs. Jones." A stunned silence swept across the lobby. Staff members froze, and guests exchanged curious glances. Behind the desk, Daniel went pale. "Owners?" he whispered, his voice drowned out by the murmurs around him. Patricia gestured for Amelia and Christopher to follow her into her office. "I think we have some details to discuss regarding the transition," she said. As the office door closed, Daniel felt the ground shift beneath him. The very people he had treated so dismissively were now his bosses. In the office, Amelia turned to Patricia. "We'd like to start with something important, addressing how your staff treats guests." "Absolutely," Patricia said, struggling to mask her anxiety. "I've already begun an internal investigation." Christopher nodded. "That's good to hear. We value professionalism and respect. Yesterday's incident, however, won't go unaddressed." Patricia understood that this was going to be the most challenging day of Daniel's career. Later that day, all hotel staff were summoned to a meeting in the Grand Regency's conference room. Patricia insisted on formally introducing the new owners. Daniel sat in a corner, trying to remain inconspicuous. His palms were sweaty, and his thoughts raced as he wondered whether yesterday's events would be mentioned. Amelia and Christopher entered to a round of applause. They exuded confidence, Amelia holding a tablet, Christopher with a faint but knowing smile. "Thank you all for joining us," Amelia began. "My husband and I have long dreamed of bringing our vision to the hospitality industry. The Grand Regency is the perfect place to start." Christopher stepped forward, his voice calm yet commanding. "Our goal is to create a space where every guest feels welcome. This means there's no room for prejudice, arrogance, or discrimination." Staff exchanged uneasy glances, sensing that this wasn't just a general statement. Daniel shrank further into his seat. "Now," Amelia continued, "let's talk about yesterday. We arrived as ordinary guests to evaluate the service. Unfortunately, our experience fell far short of expectations." The room grew silent. Daniel felt eyes turning toward him as Amelia's gaze swept over the staff without naming names. "Our guests are our top priority," she emphasized. "We expect every one of you to deliver exceptional service, regardless of a guest's appearance, background, or status." Patricia stood and added, "I conducted an investigation this morning. Some changes are necessary, starting immediately." She turned to Daniel. "Daniel, please step forward." The room froze. Daniel rose as if in a daze, his face drained of color. Christopher addressed him calmly. "Mistakes happen, but yesterday wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate act of discrimination. That has no place here." Patricia continued, "In accordance with company values, your employment is terminated, effective immediately." A wave of shock rippled through the room. Daniel opened his mouth to protest but couldn't find the words. Amelia concluded the meeting with authority. "This isn't about revenge. It's about setting a standard. We're turning a new page for the Grand Regency, one built on respect, equality, and excellence. Thank you." As the staff dispersed, Daniel remained rooted in place, stunned. Meanwhile, Amelia and Christopher headed to their suite, satisfied with the direction their new venture was taking. The next day, the hotel buzzed with activity. Guests discussed the changes, and staff exchanged cautious glances, still processing the previous day's meeting. Amelia and Christopher held a final team meeting to outline their vision. "The Grand Regency will be a place for everyone," Amelia said, unveiling a new company motto. Christopher added, "We're introducing training programs, anonymous complaint channels, and regular evaluations. Outstanding performers will be rewarded, but there's no tolerance for negligence or misconduct." The staff listened intently. Some appeared nervous, but many felt hopeful about the fresh start. By evening, Amelia and Christopher observed the bustling restaurant from a distance. Patricia approached them with a smile. "The guests are thrilled. We've already received positive feedback." Christopher raised a glass. "To success and fairness." Amelia smiled. "This is just the beginning." The Grand Regency had become a symbol of transformation and a new approach to hospitality.